I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them.
Scotia RCMP say they're doing forensic tests on a blanket linked to 2 children who have been missing for more than 2 months.
And I don't want to go through that another night without them.
The blanket was located and seized very early in the investigation. It was outside and found near Lilly and Jack's home.
2 small children vanished without a sound. A mother standing before cameras begging for their safe return. And then she disappeared too. Not physically, but into silence. 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack were last seen alive on May 1st, 2025, reported missing from their rural home the next morning. A massive search followed. Helicopters, drones, K-9 units, hundreds of volunteers combing the woods, and nothing. In those first days, their mother became the face of the tragedy. Her tearful plea broadcast across the nation. But just days later, she walked away from the cameras, cut off contact, and said nothing more. Why did Malehya Brooks Murray go silent? Is she a grieving mother? Or is she hiding something? You're watching True Child Cases, where we give a voice to the voiceless and shine a light on crimes against children. If you care about justice for the most vulnerable, subscribe now and help us keep their stories alive. Part 1. Heartbroken Mother's Plea in Lilly and Jack's Disappearance. On May 3rd, 2025, the people of Nova Scotia saw a mother on television who seemed to embody both despair and determination. Malehya Brooks Murray, mother of 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan, stood before cameras, surrounded by RCMP officers, volunteers, and the thick green woods of Pictou County. Her eyes were swollen, her hands shook, her voice cracked. We just want them home as soon as possible. Her plea was simple, but powerful, and it captured the heartbreak of an entire community. 2 children, gone without a trace, from their own home on a quiet, rural road. The community rallied behind her instantly. But even in those first moments, there were whispers of doubt. Faint at first, but growing louder in the days that followed. That morning, May 2nd, began much like any other. According to statements given by Malehya and her partner, Daniel Martel, the children had stayed home from school for 2 days. Lilly, they said, had a cough. The previous day, May 1st, the children were seen in public with the family, though police have never disclosed where. By May 2nd, the 2 were at home, as usual. Malehya and Martel said they were in their bedroom that morning with their 1-year-old baby girl. They told RCMP that Lilly wandered in and out of the bedroom several times, and they could hear Jack playing in the kitchen. But then, silence. The house, normally filled with the chaos of 3 small children, went still. They began to look around the house. Nothing. They stepped outside, calling for the children, expecting to see them somewhere in the yard, maybe chasing each other into the woods. But there was no sound but the wind. The back sliding door, a door Malehya described as silent when operated, stood slightly open. The woods beyond loomed quiet, thick, and unforgiving. There was no sign of Lilly or Jack. At 10 a.m., Malehya made the call to 911. My children are missing. I can't find them anywhere. Within hours, the RCMP launched one of the largest search operations in Nova Scotia in years. By noon, police had issued a public notice calling the children vulnerable and urging anyone with information to come forward. Helicopters circled overhead. Search dogs combed the brush. Volunteers and officers fanned out into the steep banks and dense undergrowth surrounding Gairloch Road. Neighbors handed out flyers with pictures of Lilly and Jack. Lilly in her pink sweater, pants, and boots. Jack in his blue dinosaur boots. By the end of that day, over 100 people were searching. The next day, even more arrived. At its peak, over 160 searchers were deployed, joined by drones and mounted units. Through it all, cameras kept finding Malehya. At a CTV News interview, she seemed barely able to speak. she repeated her earlier plea. "We just want them home, safe, please." She told reporters that night had been the worst of her life. "Because I didn't have them in their beds, and I don't want to go another night without them." Her pain seemed undeniable to some. Neighbors described her as a mother in hell, barely able to stand, constantly wringing her hands. Others, however, noticed something they couldn't quite name. Her words, they said, sounded carefully chosen, almost rehearsed. Her tears were real, but controlled. There was no screaming, no loss of composure. Was it simply a mother trying to stay strong for the cameras? Or something more? As the search continued through May 3rd and May 4th, RCMP officers fielded questions from a growing press presence. Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon told reporters that the children had simply wandered off and that there was no evidence of abduction. Martel, however, suggested that RCMP should monitor airports and the New Brunswick border, raising questions of his own about who might have taken the children. In a statement, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston acknowledged the worry gripping the province. People in Pictou County and across Nova Scotia are praying for a positive outcome for 2 missing children. Our first responders and volunteers are working tirelessly during this 24/7 operation. For many watching at home, Malehya's plea became the emotional centerpiece of the case. Parents across the country posted words of support on social media, sharing the children's photos and calling for vigilance. Some organized vigils and fundraising campaigns. Child safety advocates spoke up, reminding Canadians of the thousands of children who go missing each year, and of the duty to protect. But even as the community closed ranks around her, questions began to mount. Why had the children missed 2 days of disappearance? Why had no one seen them after May 1st? Why had she and Martel waited until 10 a.m. to call 911? Why did her statements to the press seem so tidy? Some wondered whether grief can take many forms, that perhaps her stoicism, her carefully worded statements, were simply her way of surviving unbearable pain. Others were less charitable, saying her demeanor was off, that her actions didn't align with her words. By the end of the first weekend, RCMP had shifted the search strategy, scaling back their manpower. No confirmed sightings of Lilly or Jack had been reported. RCMP began quietly interviewing neighbors, family members, even administering polygraph tests to some of them. Still, no charges were filed, and no one was named as a suspect. And yet, something about Malehya Brooks Murray's presence and her sudden absence kept the community guessing. After those early interviews, she vanished from public view. She left the area, reportedly staying with family elsewhere in Nova Scotia. She blocked Martel on social media. She stopped speaking to reporters entirely. Had she been advised to remain quiet by police? Or was there something she didn't want to say? Her silence became almost as loud as her earlier cries for help. What had changed in just a matter of days? Why did she step away from the cameras, from the community that had rallied to her side? Was it grief or guilt? In the next chapter, we'll look at the strange silence of a mother who once pleaded with the world to help find her children, and then disappeared from the story. Was it simply sorrow, or the first sign of something more? Part 2. The mother's sudden silence in Lilly and Jack's disappearance. In the days after her tearful plea, Malehya Brooks Murray vanished. Not in the literal sense, but from the public eye. For a mother who had so publicly begged for the safe return of her children, her sudden silence came as a shock to many. On May 3rd and May 4th, she had been the emotional centerpiece of the case. Her words, "We just want them home," were replayed on national broadcasts, posted to social media, and even printed in newspapers. Her pain resonated with parents across the country. But just as the RCMP ramped up their efforts and more media crews descended on Pictou County, the mother who had stood in front of cameras and microphones simply stopped showing up. According to her step-partner Daniel Martel, within a few days of the children's disappearance, she left the area entirely. She reportedly moved to stay with family elsewhere in Nova Scotia. She didn't inform Martel of her plans, and in fact, he later told reporters that she had blocked him on social media. To outsiders, it seemed an odd time to retreat, when public pressure and media attention could have kept the case alive. In many other missing children cases, parents keep themselves in the public eye, believing visibility is their best hope of bringing their children home. Yet here, the opposite happened. What happened to the mother who cried for her children on television? One explanation came from her own family. Her mother, Cindy Murray, told the Canadian press over the phone that police had advised the family against speaking to the media. According to her, RCMP believed too much public speculation could interfere with the investigation. Cindy said, "We're hoping and praying for the recovery of the children, but we've been told not to say anything more." Still, even that explanation left room for doubt. RCMP Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon had told the press at the time, "We continue to follow all leads. There is no evidence of abduction at this time, but we have not ruled out suspicious circumstances." It was a carefully worded statement, and one that left the door open for all kinds of theories. Why would the police advise silence? Was it simply to protect sensitive details of the case? Or was there something specific about Malehya's story that warranted caution? Martel, speaking separately, also expressed frustration. He told CBC that he believed authorities should be monitoring airports and the New Brunswick border, suggesting that abduction was still possible. Yet at the same time, he noted that Malehya no longer communicated with him, and that her disappearance from the media narrative troubled him. Disappearance from the media narrative. Her silence became almost louder than her words had been. Some close to the family defended her. They said she was too grief-stricken to face cameras again, too broken to keep explaining herself. Others were less sympathetic. They pointed to the fact that she that day. But then they were kept home again on May 1st and May 2nd, supposedly because Lilly had a cough. Police later confirmed the children were seen in public with the family on May 1st, though they never revealed exactly where. That detail alone raised eyebrows. If the children had already been home for days and were last seen publicly more than 24 hours before the 911 call, could they have disappeared earlier than May 2nd? When questioned about the time of the call, RCMP staff did not confirm precisely how long the parents searched before dialing. But one officer admitted, "We always advise calling sooner rather than later. Every minute counts." Why then did it take until 10 a.m. for Malehya to call? If they noticed the children gone first thing that morning and began searching immediately, was there nearly an hour of delay before alerting authorities? For some, it was easy to explain. People in shock sometimes take time to realize the severity of a situation. Parents might believe their children are simply hiding or playing outside, but others weren't so sure. One detail from the call especially stood out. In her own, or was it a subtle clue that they hadn't actually seen the children at all that morning, and only assumed they were there? Police records also confirmed there were no confirmed sightings of Lilly or Jack after May 1st. That meant the last independent verification of the children's whereabouts came more than a full day before the 911 call. To this day, investigators have not shared the full recording of that call. But those who reviewed it said the mother's tone was calm, even detached at times, enough to raise questions about how she was processing what she was reporting. Some child safety advocates noted that while parents react differently under stress, the wording of a first call can sometimes reflect knowledge they don't intend to reveal. "We just couldn't hear them anymore." That phrase lingered in the minds of investigators and in the minds of the public, who were already growing suspicious of her silence in the days that followed. In missing child investigations, the first few hours are critical. Every decision, every word can shape the course of the search. For Malehya Brooks Murray, her 911 call was both the start of the investigation and the start of doubts that continue to this day. In Part 4, we'll look closer at what the RCMP uncovered as their investigation deepened. The quiet scrutiny of a mother who once stood at the center of a desperate search and what their findings may reveal. Part 4, RCMP's quiet scrutiny in Lilly and Jack's disappearance. In the weeks that followed the 911 call, the search for Lilly and Jack Sullivan transitioned quietly from frantic ground operations to a much more methodical and far more private investigation. The initial search, conducted by hundreds of volunteers and RCMP officers, drones, K-9 units, and helicopters, had turned up nothing. By May 7th, just 5 days after the children were reported missing, the RCMP publicly announced they were scaling back the search effort. Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon delivered the grim news. There have been no confirmed sightings of the children. At this stage, it is unlikely they are still alive. But while the search in the woods was winding down, another kind of search was just beginning, one focused not on the dense brush around Gairloch Road, but on the people closest to Lilly and Jack. From the very beginning, RCMP refused to rule anything out. Their statements to the press became increasingly careful. They continued to insist there was no evidence of abduction, but added that suspicious circumstances have not been ruled out. What did that really mean? Behind the scenes, investigators were quietly digging deeper into the lives of everyone in that house, including Malehya Brooks Murray. By June 2025, more than 11 separate RCMP units were working on the case. The Major Crime Unit had taken over. Criminal analysts were brought in to review timelines, cross-check statements, and build a clearer picture of the days leading up to the disappearance. They collected surveillance footage from the surrounding areas. Investigators confirmed publicly that the children were seen in public with their family on May 1st, the day before they were reported missing. But they refused to reveal where or under what circumstances that sighting occurred, saying only that releasing the location could interfere with the ongoing investigation. That detail left many wondering. Why keep that information secret if it could help identify witnesses or jog someone's memory? Was it possible the May 1st sighting revealed something investigators weren't ready to share? Police began interviewing anyone who might have interacted with the family. By mid-June, at least 54 individuals had been formally questioned, and some had undergone polygraph testing. Neighbors, extended family, friends, even co-workers were contacted. RCMP also obtained numerous search warrants. They seized and examined electronic devices, looking for evidence of communication, plans, or any indication of what may have happened to the children. Yet, despite this massive effort, no arrests were made, no suspects were publicly named, and no one, including Malehya Brooks Murray, was officially cleared. Through it all, the RCMP maintained what they called a coordinated and deliberate approach. Corporal Sandy Matharu, the lead investigator on the case, told reporters, "We're accessing, evaluating, and analyzing a significant volume of information from a variety of sources. Every piece of information is being meticulously scrutinized, prioritized, and actioned to ensure nothing is missed." For observers, that sounded like a polite way of saying, "We're watching everyone, especially the mother." Her silence during this time only seemed to deepen suspicions. While her family claimed police had instructed them not to speak to the press, many wondered if that explanation fully accounted for her complete withdrawal from public life. Even her relationship with Martel seemed to have deteriorated. He told CBC that after the children disappeared, she left the area to stay with relatives and blocked him on social media. Their partnership, it appeared, had fractured under the weight of the tragedy. And yet, the RCMP never moved against her. To this day, they have never called her a suspect, but they've also never publicly ruled her out. Perhaps she's just a mother caught in a nightmare she cannot escape. Or perhaps she knows more than she's saying. What the RCMP really discovered in those quiet, painstaking weeks of investigation remains sealed in their case files. But the questions only multiplied. In the next part, we'll explore how public opinion shifted during this time, how a mother once seen as the face of the search became the subject of whispers, rumors, and dark theories about what really happened to Lilly and Jack. Part 5. Public doubts and theories in Lilly and Jack's disappearance. In the early days after Lilly and Jack disappeared, the community of Pictou County, and indeed much of Nova Scotia, rallied behind Malehya Brooks Murray. Her tearful plea became the face of the tragedy, and her words were shared by parents across the country. We just want them home as soon as possible. But as the weeks passed, and as news coverage faded from headlines, public sentiment began to shift. At first it was subtle, quiet conversations in grocery store lines, comments on Facebook posts. People began to wonder why there had been no new statements from the mother, why she hadn't appeared at community vigils or thanked volunteers publicly, why she had left the area entirely and cut off communication with her partner, Daniel Martel. Even those who defended her early on found themselves asking, if that were my kids, I'd be screaming their names from the rooftops. I'd never stop talking about them. On social media, hashtags like #Bring Lilly and Jack Home competed with darker threads of speculation. Anonymous posters on Reddit and Facebook groups debated every detail of her 911 call, her demeanor at press conferences, and her decision to withdraw from the public eye. Why did she wait until 10 o'clock to call 911? Why didn't they hear the door or the kids crying in the woods? Why block Martel on social media? What does she have to hide? Some began circulating theories, none of them proven, that she might have staged the disappearance or that she knew more than she admitted. They pointed to cases in which parents were later implicated in the disappearance or harm of their own children. Others reminded the public to reserve judgment. Every parent grieves differently, they said. Trauma can make people retreat, even from those trying to help. Child safety advocates were quick to issue statements warning against online harassment, but they also used the moment to remind Canadians of a painful truth. Every year, thousands of children go missing, and in some cases, those closest to the victims are involved. One particularly vocal advocate told a local paper, "We hope Malehya Brooks Murray is innocent of any wrongdoing, but it's critical to investigate all possibilities, because what's at stake here is the safety of 2 children." The whispers weren't confined to social media. Even at local coffee shops and playgrounds, neighbors debated what they thought really happened. Some said they couldn't believe a mother would hurt her own children. Others shook their heads and said, "We've seen it before. You never really know what happens behind closed doors." Meanwhile, RCMP stayed tight-lipped. They would not confirm if Malehya was considered a suspect, but they also never cleared her name. That ambiguity fueled speculation even more. Martel himself gave interviews expressing confusion and frustration. He told CBC, "We should be working together right now, but she cut me out. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on anymore." His comments only added to the growing sense of unease. By June, the $150,000 reward offered by the province for information in the case was still unclaimed. Volunteers continued to organize small search efforts, but with each passing day, hope dimmed. For many in the community, it became harder and harder to see Malehya as just a victim of circumstance. What if her silence wasn't grief, but guilt? Even so, no evidence has ever been made public that directly implicates her in the disappearance of Lilly and Jack. And yet, no one, not even the RCMP, seems ready to rule her out completely. The case remains open, and the public remains divided between sympathy and suspicion. In the final part, we'll take a step back and reflect on the heartbreaking mystery that still haunts Nova Scotia. Is Malehya Brooks Murray simply a mother trapped in a nightmare beyond her control, or the keeper of a secret too dark to reveal? Part 6. a mother's mystery in Lilly and Jack's disappearance. As the weeks turned into months, the case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan remained shrouded in silence, much like the mother at its center. From the moment she stood before cameras, tearfully pleading for her children to come home, to the day she quietly left the spotlight and retreated into obscurity, Malehya Brooks Murray has been both a symbol of heartbreak and a source of suspicion. What we know is this: 2 young children vanished from their home on Gairloch Road, leaving no trace. Despite hundreds of hours of searching, dozens of interviews, and an investigation that remains active, there has been no sign of them since. We know that their mother cried on television, begging whoever might have taken them, or whoever might know something, to come forward. We know she spoke of her agony, saying she couldn't bear another night without her children in their beds, and we know that soon after she disappeared from public view. Some see her silence as the natural reaction of a grieving mother, too overwhelmed to endure the glare of cameras and the cruelty of public speculation. Others see it as calculated, as if hiding a secret she cannot afford to let slip. In a press conference, RCMP lead investigator Corporal Sandy Matharu said only, "We're considering all possible scenarios. We will leave no stone unturned." But what does that really mean? If she is hiding something, why has nothing been found? If she is innocent, why hasn't she fought harder to keep the story alive? It is a mystery that continues to divide the community and one that continues to haunt the wider public. For child advocates, the case is a painful reminder of how vulnerable children are and how easily their voices can be silenced.
We want to thank all those
Every
who
year
provided
in
tips and
Canada,
information.
thousands
Please
of
know that
children
we're fully
are
engaged
reported
in finding
missing.
out what happened to Lilly and
Many
Jack.
are found safe. Some are not. And in some cases, the answers never come. That's why it's so important to keep talking about cases like Lilly and Jack's, to keep their names in the public consciousness. Because even when it's uncomfortable, even when it raises questions we'd rather not ask, the lives of children depend on adults willing to speak up. Tonight, we are left with this question: who is Malehya Brooks Murray? A mother trapped in unimaginable grief? Or a woman hiding a truth too dark to confess? And more importantly, where are Lilly and Jack? We may never know what really happened on that quiet road in Lansdowne Station, but as long as they remain missing, their story must not be forgotten. If you have any information about the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, contact the RCMP tip line. Even the smallest detail could make the difference. And remember, every child deserves to feel safe, to sleep in their own bed, to grow up surrounded by love. Let's make sure no child is ever forgotten. If you have any information about the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, please contact the RCMP tip line immediately. Even the smallest detail could bring them home. And if you believe every child deserves safety, love, and justice, join us. Subscribe to True Child Cases, like this video, and share their story. Together, we can give a voice to the voiceless and stand against crimes that silence the innocent. No child should ever be forgotten.